Welcome, everyone, to the Fantasy Football Factory podcast. NFL Week 9, all but in the books. We're going to go ahead and start taking a look ahead to next week as well. I'm one of your hosts, Ben Mintz, joined as always by our good friend, Steven Cheah, and we're presented by Miller Lite.
Yeah, buddy, Miller Lite, the absolute best. I actually got a check-in. We got a bunch of people signing up for this contest next year. So it is your league coming out to Barstool HQ to draft with Mincy and myself. We had so much fun doing it this year in the office. We're extending the invite to all of our friends, our listeners, to come out next year. It is a contest. Go to barstoolsports.com/FFF sweeps. And you and your league are going to come out here to Barstool HQ, draft with us. It's going to be so much fun. Already looking forward to next August. But we also got to give a shout out to just Miller Lite, the awesome beer. Great tasting, less filling, only 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Celebrate responsibly. Milwaukee Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's so great. They got it everywhere. Grocery store, beer place, liquor store, bars. Some bars in like Philly let you buy just beer and take it out. But if you can't find it anywhere or you just want to stay at home, go to MillerLite.com/fantasy to find delivery options near you. You can really pick up Miller Lite anywhere. It's always Miller time. Miller time a lot of times for James Conner and a bunch of other guys. Yesterday, Mincy, how did your squad do? Crazy Sunday. The Bills losing to the Jags. The Cardinals without Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins just rolling over the 49ers. The Giants beating the Raiders. The Cowboys just getting almost shut out by the Broncos at home. What was going on yesterday?
Yeah, that to me was the story, was the duds laid by so many of the powerhouse offenses. And I'm specifically looking at you, Dallas. I'll throw Kansas City in there too. Patrick Mahomes, I know he's been struggling 160 yards passing. I was watching that game. I was just like, when's something going to finally happen here? But you look at the teams that have the high-powered offenses, the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, rusty, coming off the calf injury, want to hit his worst game of the season by far. Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills, it's 6 points against Jacksonville. What the hell is going on? And then you got a Sunday Night Football, and the Matt Stafford and the Rams couldn't do anything either. And Tennessee with the huge win. And so, to me, the story of yesterday was all these superstar fantasy offenses that just laid eggs. it was a weird Sunday.
FFF parlay last night. Disaster. The Matthew Stafford over, Cooper Kupp over, and the Rams covering. It's been tough sledding for our parlays. We had terrible beats on Thursday night 2 weeks in a row. Last 2 weeks ago, the Cardinals Packers, we lost by half a yard. Aaron Jones ruled in. We had a cash ticket, and that gets reversed. This past week, we had Michael Pittman Jr. Everything was pacing. We hit everything. We needed 4 yards out of him. Comes up 4 yards short on the receiving end of a plus 650. We're going to get right this week. I have a very good feeling. We'll get into that a little bit later. We got Baltimore, my favorite team to bet on, going into Miami, where Lamar Jackson is from. Very excited for that. But let's continue with yesterday. So Justin Herbert, the top scorer, Lamar Jackson, Matt Ryan, Josh Johnson, Carson Wentz. Those are the top 5 quarterbacks from last week. Listen to these receivers. This is crazy. So nobody would have predicted this going into week 9. Top 5 fantasy receivers after week 9 for just that week. Elijah Moore, Devontae Smith, I don't want to mess up his name, Olamide Zaccheaus from the Falcons. You heard his name a couple times, I'm sure.
Yep, he is. That's it.
Malik Turner on the Cowboys, who did nothing until Dak Prescott, 2 touchdowns in the last 5 minutes after doing nothing the entire game. Malik Turner gets in there. And then, of course, Scordwell. You cannot bench this guy. Scordwell Patterson finished as wide receiver 5. He's just incredible. He had the game-winning play, essentially, against the Saints. But let's talk about that. The Saints, what is going on? So Trevor Siemian, I wasn't paying as close of attention to that game. I had a lot of bets on some other games. Trevor Siemian got the start. Taysom Hill, I know, played some. What's going on with your squad? They came back from a huge deficit to take the lead, and then Matty Ice does what Matty Ice does in the final minute, drives them down, hits a game-winning field goal.
Well, okay. First of all, the Saints had no business winning that game, even though they almost did. I don't want to come on here and be like, oh, make excuses. They got the crap kicked out of them for over 3 quarters and were losing 24-6 on their home field to their rival. On the surface, you would blame this on Trevor Siemian sucking. But if you watch the game, this receiving corps couldn't catch a cold yesterday. Siemian had like 7 or 8 balls dropped that should have been caught. He actually wasn't near as horrible as you would think. The receivers literally couldn't catch anything until the fourth quarter. Drops all over the place, bad run routes. I mean, it was a disaster. So I don't, I know Trevor Siemian's certainly no Hall of Fame quarterback. I'm not going to come out and say he is. But I feel like on the surface, if you didn't watch the game, people are going to blame him when it wasn't his fault. I mean, these receivers just killed him. Saints still almost came back. And then to come back from 24-6 to get a 25-24 lead, they missed 2 2-point conversions, Shay. One when it was 24-19 and one was 25-24. And, you have 19 points in a row. You think you're going to just completely steal a win from your rival and then then Cole Patterson just busts that long play. 74 yards.
Was that on Lattimore?
What's up?
Was that on Lattimore? That's a shame.
It was just hard.
I knew it was Lattimore.
And so it's so frustrating because I was laughing in my head when the Saints got the lead. I'm like, oh, Atlanta again blowing leads like they always do. And then Cordarrelle Patterson gets them. The Saints lose. They fall to 5-3. God, it's going to be a week to week thing with this bunch right now. I mean, there's no getting around it. I try to be as optimistic as I can with the Siemian thing, but there's just a lot of lacking talent on offense right now, other than Alvin Kamara and Ingram, who's fine, and I guess Hill. But the rest of this offense, it's tough sledding out there.
You know who could have helped is like a superstar wide receiver, maybe when you signed to a huge contract, a year ago. Someone like that could have helped. Do you guys have a guy like that?
Yeah, a guy who never dropped passes either. If you look at Mike Thomas, I mean, the knock on him was he didn't have the big speed, but he at least would catch the damn ball. That would have helped a lot. It also would help to have a quarterback. I don't know. Tough deal. Still 5-3. I mean, I know I rightfully, my NFC South runs through Nola Crusade that I went on. I rightfully caught a lot of smack for that on Twitter. I do feel pretty good realistically about the wild card situation for the Saints.
So right now, Schefter tweeted out that it would be Saints at Bucks if the wild card started tomorrow.
Man, well, I do feel good about the Saints making it because behind the Saints, the NFC depth is bad, right now.
The Falcons are in right now in the playoffs, yeah.
Yeah, Falcons back to 4-4, and the way they started, you got to give them some credit. Arthur Smith, maybe they're. It's almost like they're doing better. It's like whenever you have chemistry issues, you look at what happened in Atlanta and Cleveland yesterday. I know Ridley and Odell Beckham on the surface are extremely talented, but they're all obviously causing heaps of problems and distractions behind the scenes. And you see united efforts from both teams. But just tough, man. Tough. And, that's 2 home losses now for the Saints, too. They blew that Giants game where they're up 21-10 a few weeks ago. Still having a pretty good year, all things considered, at 5-3, but might have to ramp back my NFC South 5th Division championship. Might have to walk that one back a little bit, but what are you gonna do, man? Of course, I'm gonna seize the day and enjoy last Sunday in the Superdome. What do you want from me?
It was a tough weekend for NFC teams at the top. Arizona survived and did a really good job without Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, and then Chase Edmonds, who we saw go down pretty early after just 1 carry. But we saw the Packers, Cowboys, and who's the other team that lost yesterday from the NFC? Rams last night.
Rams.
Yes.
Rams.
The Rams last night in just like a tough showing. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. In the AFC, who's the top team? Like, is it Tennessee? Like I put out a top 10 every week, and I had Tennessee as my top team in the AFC because we got Baltimore, I guess, but they're getting by the skin of their teeth every week. And you got Tennessee who's putting the absolute hammer down on the Rams, who are a very good team, even though they lost. It's hard to tell what to make of either conference right now. Like, who really is the favorite? I guess it's Arizona.
I just think this is the weirdest year in terms of who do you put in that elite tier?
Right.
Like you usually have at least 2 that and this year it's there's
it was Buffalo all year,
right?
And then they lay an egg in Jacksonville, 6 points. I loved the Josh Allen on Josh Allen stuff though. I live for that stuff.
Tennessee thing. the Tennessee thing is so interesting to me because you look at their last 3 weeks. I mean, you got home Monday night, crazy win over the Bills. You hammer Chiefs and Mahomes, and you hammer the Rams. I mean, 3 not just wins, but great wins. But the thing with Tennessee and their DNA, they're like such a great underdog, and then they like play a bad team like when they lost to the Jets earlier this year. They struggle in that role and they're supposed to win. But on that front, Mike Vrabel, they've turned that defense around. I mean, they were freaking horrible defensively early in the year. And Kevin Byard, one of the better safeties in the NFL. I know he's really highly paid. He did such a good job reading that Stafford audible on the pick 6 last night. He was the AFC Defensive Player of the Month last month, and I think he's got a lot to do with it. But on the other side of it, with no Henry, Tennessee didn't even move the ball in that game. They got the 2 interceptions back to back. One led to a Tannehill to Swain touchdown, and then they got a pick 6, 2 touchdowns in 11 seconds. And like nothing happened in that game. And on the fantasy note, I know AP got in the end zone, didn't look great, but the running back situation, we kind of thought it might be a little bit of a mess. But AP certainly who looks like they're trying to go to.
I called Nichols.
You were not like feeling
that. I was not, but that like the token touchdown for AP, like it's a big moment. He's going to be in the goal line. He's it's crazy. He got signed officially, I think on technically officially like Friday. And then, he's already in the game, doing running. A lot of teams, running plays aren't crazy different, but it was just shocking to see him get as many carries as he did. One thing I do want to kind of
what do you make of the Ram thing? Do you think it was just a bad game?
Yeah, I mean, I think all teams the Bucs had one last week. The Cardinals had one, a couple weeks ago. Dallas had one yesterday. It just happens. Like there's no elite team. I mean, nobody's going to be undefeated. It looks like the Cardinals are the most complete team, especially with this defense and the running attack. Speaking of which, let's just touch on it. So Chase Edmonds injured again. 1 carry, 3 yards, went off on a cart, was questionable for the rest of the game, did not return. James Conner, incredible. I mean, he was the top fantasy player this week, 37.8 points. I mean, just a monster game. How do you foresee this shaking out for the remainder of the year? I mean, it looks like it's going to be a high ankle sprain for Chase Edmonds. That's typically like a 4 to 6 week injury, depending on how bad it is. So what do you think of James Conner's prospectus moving forward the rest of the year?
I mean, I think he's an RB1 right now. He's going to lead the NFL in touchdowns. And Shay, while we're talking about James Conner, you're being a humbler man than I am. That was a hell of a bet you made yesterday with your James Conner 2 touchdowns plus 12-1 odds on the Barstool Sportsbook.
Yep, I called it out on Dear Mr. Fantasy.
Tune in to Dear Mr. Fantasy on Sunday mornings for these nuggets of knowledge because Shay came on there and said it on the damn show. You said it. And anytime you hit a 12-unit bet like that, and the data, it was totally – I mean, I normally love giving you crap, and rightfully so, but that was a great one, man. I mean, you found something there that was 12-1 that you thought should have been 7 or 8-1. You saw I know you liked it because you thought the odds were too much. Very, very, very good.
And they just scored the 2 touchdowns the week before. So it's like, all right, now they have no Kyler. They have no DeAndre Hopkins, who's, a red zone machine. Where are they going to go? Naturally, you kind of think James Conner, can he score twice? I mean, he did it the week before. Why not? So, I mean, he had just an absolute monster game. I kind of wish I did 3 touchdowns for him, but I digress. One thing that I found really interesting from week 9 is kind of a regression to the mean or what was expected from the tight ends. Tight end 1, George Kittle, 8 targets, 6 catches, 101 yards, a touchdown, and a fumble. Travis Kelce, 8 targets, 5 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown. Darren Waller, 11 targets, 7 catches, 92 yards. We saw them 1, 2, and 3. That's pretty much
back from the dead.
Right. That's pretty much how we expected the tight ends. Maybe not necessarily in that order, but those were the pretty clear top 3 tight ends going into the year. So it's nice to see them kind of live up to where we thought they would be. Hopefully we can continue that.
I want to mention on the Waller front, with Henry Ruggs out, obviously, Brian Edwards had no catches. So you looked at the Raiders passing game. Hunter Renfrow had a pretty good game. Waller had a pretty good game. Kenyon Drake, 6 catches for 70 yards. Could this be a time to buy in on Waller right now? I mean, his value is really low, and now maybe they're not going to be throwing it to the receivers as much.
Yeah, I was paying pretty close attention to that game just because I had a lot of guys going in that game. I don't love how they use him during the red zone. Like they're having him run what I would classify as like little guy routes. Like they're having him do kind of pivots and things like that. And, he's got like James Bradbury on him. So like a very good corner. I would much rather use routes like fades or things like that, or, just quick slants, things that where he can really use his size. And I didn't think that they really did that very well. I'm still a huge Darren Waller guy, and I'm going to go down with this ship, just like I did last year with Jonathan Taylor, which actually came to correct itself. But hopefully we can kind of see the 11 targets, that kind of thing. We saw 19 targets week 1. Hopefully we can see that start to build, because it's been too many, 40 to 65 yard games for him. We need to see more. Didn't get in the end zone. Hopefully can end that soon. But let's talk about bare bottom clothing. Bare bottom clothing's awesome. They actually sent us a bunch of stuff. I love the joggers that they sent.
So comfortable. So comfortable.
Very, very good. Bare Bottom is on a mission to make the most comfortable, made to last menswear around, while giving back to communities where their clothing is made. Comfy season is here. Stock your closet with comfort without paying the insane markups that you see at other online or big box brands. You can feel good about wearing Bare Bottoms, because for each item you purchase, a nutritious meal is donated to a child in need. Everything is built for value. You're getting the softest, stretchiest clothes in the game for a great deal while doing some good in the process. So get $5 off your first order by going to barebottomclothing.com/factory. That's BEAR, like the animal, bottomclothing.com/factory. Their stuff is awesome. They have like these stretchy long sleeve tees. I'm actually a huge long sleeve tee guy because I'm always cold. And they make incredible ones, and their joggers really, really good. So Bare Bottom Clothing, excellent stuff. Again, $5 off your first order by going to barebottomclothing.com/factory. Yes, just a kind of a crazy weekend in football. But let's talk about your crazy weekend. You're in Vegas right now at the World Series of Poker. So what's going on there?
Well, so a lot of things are going on here, Shay. And first of all, I want to say, whatever it is about when I'm in Vegas on an NFL Sunday, they all but take the shirt off my back. This is the second time in 5 weeks. I got destroyed yesterday on picks, and it happened 4 weeks ago too. I've had my worst 2 Sundays, not just of this year, but of the last 3 or 4 years, both in the last 5 weeks when I'm in Vegas. When I'm in Vegas, I need to not pick games, but that's an oxymoron because, of course, when I'm in Vegas, I'm going to fire the hardest. So what's going on at the World Series of Poker? I made day 2. You start with 60,000 chips. I have 67,000, which doesn't seem like a ton, but it's fine. The main event's 2-hour levels. And unlike some of my employees, I realize that patience is virtue in the World Series main event. I start back on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 Central. Shout out to Smitty. He made day 2 of 60,000. He was on the feature table last night. Smitty actually really impressed me, man. He made a couple of really big folds. Thought he played some excellent poker, breaking down.
Right, he folded like a King 9 versus Pocket Kings, right? Where
there was a hand where he called a raise of King 9, and it came King 9-3, and the guy he was up against had Pocket Kings, and Smitty was able to get away from it on the turn.
That's pretty
for
nuts.
all his money. It's a great fold, and he was right. Props to Smitty, who had every excuse to go broke with top 2 pair on a King 9-3 when somebody had Kings, and he also lost a big pot with Pocket Kings into Pocket Aces and bagged the starting stack. So Smitty, might have a little smack talk for the Kraken Aces crew. And look, love Nate, my boy. We get along great, all that. This bust hand Nate had in the World Series, man, he's got some explaining to do in the office.
So what was it? He had 4 high?
You're playing the World Series main event where it's 2-hour levels. Every level is a marathon. How can you go broke with 4 high?
How do you even call big blind with 4 high?
I sort of understand. So the hand I'm referring to, and we'll not go too deep into poker here on the Fantasy Pod, but basically Nate was trying to bluff with 4-3 of spades, and somebody re-raised him pre-flop. That's fine if you try to bluff pre-flop with 4-3 of spades, but when you get re-raised and you have 4 high, put your damn hand into the muck. There are a million other hands coming up. It's the main event. You've got 40 minutes left in day 1 of the main. We're out here building our Cracky Aces podcast brand. There's so much intrinsic value in being alive in the main event when we're the Barstool people at the damn main event.
Was he devil's advocate?
With 40 minutes left in day 1,
was he up against the wall? Did he have like a low stack?
No. He had 70,000 chips. He had plenty. He had plenty to put in the bag. Move on to day one. It was time to be a hero. I bagged 67 and I'm fine. Nate, he just lost his mind. He just I don't know if he melted down or what. So he re-raises the guy. So he raises, dude re-raises, and he comes back over the top with 4-3 spades. Guy calls. Comes king 8-2. Nate bets again. The guy calls, or king, check that, king 4-2. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Turns an 8. So the board's king 4-2-8 and turns 2 spades. Nate has a pair and a flush draw and goes all in for 48,000. And the guy calls him with 20 seconds. Ace king, the king, and Nate bricks. And that's just it. He's out of the World Series main with 4 high, losing his mind. And the new cracking aces, I try to be the team player that I am. We had to record a very tough times for Nate, busted with 30 minutes left and having to record a podcast and explain himself last night. I don't want to say it out there, but people probably bought his World Series main event action,
I saw the picture of him in the spider monkey mask. He was playing the part.
Yeah, I get that he wearing the mask and all that. But, if I threw down a bunch of money to invest in somebody in the World Series main and they lost with 4 high, probably wouldn't be very happy about my investment. He's probably got a little explaining to do on that one. You know what I mean? I don't know. That was really tough. And so we did a podcast, and Smitty, he caught a lot of crap on the newest episode of Cracking Aces that's out, and rightfully so. He deserved, and he'll tell you he did. It was tough. So he's out. Smitty, me, and Jake Toole, who helps the podcast, he has 110,000. We're all playing day 2 on Tuesday. So on it goes. I'm excited for day 2, and good luck to my other fellow guys still in Cracking Aces, and having a great time out here. Cheah, over 5,000 people already registered for the main event, and they still got some starting days. So poker doing well. The travel ban got lifted November 1st, so you got some international people, and knock on wood, but no COVID outbreaks. So
love it.
Yeah, love being here. My D-Day is Tuesday. I've got, like I said, 67,000 going to 4,800. Feel good about it. So I'm excited to get back in there, and looking forward to watching. We'll see. But getting we'll say this, my social's real hot with the main event stuff. And also I got to see the Rolling Stones Saturday night, which is super bucket list. So I'm having a big time out here, despite the fact that I can't pick my nose on NFL Sunday.
That's awesome. We are obviously rooting for you, so hopefully you bring home the bacon. Let's get back into the fantasy football world. A couple guys kind of interesting that had big games yesterday, wondering if they're worth an ad. Tim Patrick yesterday, he dominated early. It seemed like he was catching every ball. 5 targets, 4 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown. He had the big one on Trayvon Diggs. Owned in 25% of leagues. He seems to be kind of a steady Eddie guy where you can kind of plug him in and play him. He's going to get, somewhere between, 50 and 80 yards, maybe catch a touchdown. Is he a guy you like adding? He's owned in 25% of leagues.
I think he is, if you're looking for a depth receiver, and let me tell you why. Noah Fant's injury, I think, opens up more targets for him.
Yeah.
Because you look at Bridgewater, going back to when he was a Saint, a Viking, he distributes, he checks down a lot. He doesn't really lock on to one guy. Mm-hmm. So, Jerry Jeudy had a decent day yesterday. Cortland Sutton didn't do anything. So they got 3 receivers. When they had those 3 receivers and Noah Fant, it was too many people, But with Fant out, Patrick seems like his safety valve a little bit, even if he caught a long pass. And so I think he might be worth an ad because of that. And Judy, actually, owners should be encouraged too. And how about your boy Javonte Williams at 111 yards yesterday too?
Yeah, he's starting to break out. Hopefully,
the second half thing you talked about,
the powers that be with that. I was surprised Melvin Gordon didn't get dealt at the trade deadline. That really would open the door for Pookie Williams. But he had some runs yesterday that were just incredible. And I think he leads the NFL in missed tackles, which is obviously incredible for a rookie. That was kind of what he was known for coming out. Let me ask you about your boy, who you poo-pooed last week, Elijah Moore. Yes. 8 targets, 7 catches, 84 yards, 2 touchdowns. A week ago you were saying don't add this guy. And he blows up on Thursday night.
I'll say this. I love Elijah Moore as a player. I was just worried about him and Crowder both in the slot. The slot felt a little crowded for the Jets. And man, Elijah's super talented, great route runner. just kind of was slow to. And this is the thing we talk about the NFL, though. The rookies sometimes take a little while and break out in the second half, and it's so easy to get impatient because of it. But man, he looked awesome on that dome turf in Indy. Well, big shout out to Elijah for getting me to Barstool too. Now I wouldn't be running my mouth with you guys without him. But yeah, and the thing too is, he did well with Josh Johnson and Mike White. The Jets quarterback situation, I mean, it could be Wilson, White, or Johnson right now next week in Buffalo. Nobody knows anything. But it certainly seems like Elijah Moore, coming into his own, it could be worth an ad.
Another guy I think could be starting to trend upward in just the right time. Brandon Ayuk. So 8 targets, 6 catches, 89 yards and a touchdown. Did lose a fumble. He's owned in 60% of leagues, but apparently he had a blow up with Kyle Shanahan over the bye week, and they kind of went at each other. It led to his best game last week, week 8, and then follows it up with a big game week 9, albeit in a loss, but a big fantasy game. Is he a guy you're going to look to add and then immediately start as like maybe a wide receiver 3?
What's interesting to me, and I said this on Dear Mr. Fantasy yesterday, is in the old days when you got into a fight with your coach, you got to sit on the bench. Ayuk gets into this scrap, yells at Shanahan, and all of a sudden he's back. It's funny. It's a funny world. But, Debo's been getting so many of the targets. And Jimmy G, even in the loss yesterday, Garoppolo put up decent numbers. No, and Kittle's back. Maybe it's going to kind of finally balance out where Debo was getting all the targets. And no, maybe now it'll finally balance out where, Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle, maybe they distribute it a little more, it seems like.
Yeah. Let's take a break from these waiver wire ads to talk about Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever. Silverado is strong, advanced, dependable, and hard-working. Football season is in full swing. It's time to up your tailgating game. They got the available multi-flex tailgate with 6 convenient configurations. They'll give you a step up on the tailgating competition. There's the primary tailgate, which opens up with the push of a button with the key fob or from inside the truck. The inner gate that folds to a large step for easily getting in and out of the bed. There's an easy access configuration where the inner gate folds down, allowing you to reach further into the bed. And it can also become a desk or surface for your tailgating meal. The Chevy Silverado is modern and advanced with a ton of grit, a partner in getting things done. Silverado is as strong and dependable as the people who drive them. Shout out Kelly in Vegas' dad. Did she hit her parlay on Saturday? I think she did, right?
Did she hit again?
I know she had the first 2 legs. I didn't see the third one.
Dude, she's shout out to her.
She's incredible.
She's way too smart to be running around these idiots.
Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever. They're awesome. Kelly in Vegas, her dad, exclusively Silverado guy. We appreciate Chevy Silverado and their partnership. All right, let's go into some other guys to add. Eagles backfield. What are we making of this? Jordan Howard, 17 carries, 71 yards, and a touchdown. Only owned in 13% of leagues. Are you comfortable starting this guy as like a flex or an RB3 next week?
I mean, it just depends on bye week stuff. What I will say in Philly that's interesting.
Going against
finally,
Denver.
Sirianni's finally realizing they should have a running offense, though.
Yeah.
That's something he should have known from day one. Yesterday, you look at Jalen Hurts didn't throw a lot of passes. They ran the ball with Jordan Howard.
They were efficient.
Gainwell and Scott. That's what they should be running. They've got a running quarterback. Yeah. They should be running the ball, controlling the game, and then, Hurts run a read option and then some bootlegs, play actions. I don't know why that took till week 9 to realize that.
Right.
Because that was literally when you looked at him, you're like, hey, that's what this team should be doing. So shout out to Nick Sirianni in the 3rd month of the year figuring out how to run his offense.
Yeah.
I'm still a little concerned though about it because they've got too many guys.
Yeah. I think that Jordan Howard can be a pretty safe flex right now. I think, based on these 2 games, he's just getting acclimated with the team. He's going to be that guy. I like him better than anybody else in the Eagles backfield, like Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell. So I think Jordan Howard is going to be your guy there, even though he doesn't catch very many passes. Another guy who had a pretty nice game yesterday, Ramondre Stevenson with the Patriots, 10 carries, 62 yards, 2 targets, 2 catches for 44 yards, only owned in 6% of leagues, had a vicious stiff arm. Is he a guy you'd look to add, or even, is he more of a depth piece?
I think it's a depth piece. I feel like I need to still see a little more. I did like what I saw, but I'm not quite sure I'm there.
It's hard
yet.
to depend on Patriots running backs.
Yeah, and Damian Harris is definitely their number one guy.
Yep.
The Pats, though, are pretty back all of a sudden. I mean, their defense is playing really well. They've outscored teams, I think, 105-40 the last 3 weeks.
So I caught some flack because I didn't include them in my top 10. I had Cleveland at top 10. This week we got Cleveland versus New England. In New England, right now the Pats are a 2.5-point favorite. I don't know. I kind of ride with Cleveland, but New England, they played, for the most part, mistake-free football. And, they're going against a team that is the king of making mistakes this year, which is the Carolina Panthers. Here was an interesting one. A guy I saw get in the end zone, a name fantasy owners are going to be very familiar with, Le'Veon Bell. 11 carries, 48 yards, and a touchdown, only owned in 5% of leagues. Is he a guy you're going to look to, maybe plug and play, or is this kind of a, touchdown-dependent guy?
Well, Devontae Freeman also had 13 carries for 79 yards too.
Yep.
And so I mean, the whole thing is we're at that time of the year where you're dealing with bye week stuff. So, if you got to get somebody in there, your second running back, you could do worse than those guys. I understand that it's desperate times, but I still got some, I don't know. I like Freeman, I think, more than Bell still. I mean, Bell had 11 carries, 40 yards. And the thing is with Bell, he's got good receiving skills, but Baltimore doesn't really throw to the running backs.
One guy I want to call some attention to who's not getting enough attention. He's on Jacksonville. His name is Jamal Agnew. You might remember him he scored a couple kick returns earlier this year. Kind of a pedestrian game yesterday. He had 5 targets, 3 catches, 27 yards, and 1 carry for 11 yards. He plays actually kind of the Laviska Shenault role that we were thinking of, where he's, used kind of as a running back and a receiver. But in his last 4 games, and this is including kind of a dud yesterday, 30 targets. 4 in 20 catches across those 4 games, so averaging 5 catches a game. He's a guy where if you're on a bye, or if one of your regular guys is on a bye, like your wide receiver 3 or your flex, they're going against Indy this week. Right now, the over/under is 48. Colts are 10.5-point favorites. Conceivably, you could see Jacksonville getting down and kind of feeding the ball to an Agnew. I think that he is actually a serviceable guy you could plug in this week if you're going through a bye. Only owned to 10% of leagues, and probably get him for $0 on the waiver wire.
Yeah, and James Robinson probably going to be out again next week. I know they hadn't announced yet, but his ankle injury, wasn't great. They actually thought it might be season ending, so they kind of dodged a bullet there. Look, this week it's all about bye week feelings and stuff, and he's certainly not a guy that's going to help you long term, but I don't hate that logic. Carlos Hyde's also getting carries too.
Yep. I'll
tell you one guy. I got another guy I like. I want to mention quick. Hunter Renfrow. And the thing with Renfrow, not a guy that has a huge ceiling, but if you're in a full point PPR, you got to really like him. Half point PPR, he's just one of those solid guys that's going to get you 6 catches for 65 yards. And, there's a lot to be said.
Touchdown every other week. Yep. Yeah. There's
a lot to be said for like third receiver spot, flex spot when you're dealing with bye weeks. He's a good guy to have on your bench in case you're dealing with injuries. He's just a guy you can plug in there and get you 10 or 15 points. And I know that may not be sexy, but there's a lot of value in that this time of year.
Yeah, there's one also big veteran. So we know we're taping this Monday morning. So full transparency, we don't know where Odell Beckham Jr. is going to land, but we do know where one seasoned speedy vet is going to land or has landed, and that's Deshaun Jackson. But before we get into that, we want to talk to you guys about embarkvet.com. Introducing EmbarkVet. It's awesome. It's basically the service that is like one of these services for humans where you find out your genetic makeup. So dogs, a lot of people, will rescue dogs that are mixed or mutts and won't really know what types of breed there it is. That's where EmbarkVet can help. They screen for over 210 plus genetic health risks and over 35 plus physical traits across 350 plus breeds. I couldn't even name 20 breeds. To better plan your dog's health routine with the holidays to come. 37% of pet owners enhance their dog's care with Embark results. Embark also offers DNA tests for purebred dogs. So this holiday season, understand your dog better with Embark, the highest rated dog DNA test right now. Embark has a limited time offer on their breed and health kit and purebred kit for our listeners. Go to embarkvet.com and to get free shipping and save $64 with promo code FACTORY. That's embarkvet.com. Use promo code FACTORY to save $64 and get a perfect gift for a happy, healthy holiday for a little pupperino in your household.
Shout out to Embark too. Like as we get, it's funny. that is like the most thoughtful gift you can give someone. I mean, it's like all about, Shay, I know you're a family man. When you're gift giving, it's not always just about, something flashy. It's about, connecting with someone and making it meaningful to your family. And a dog's another member of your family. Why would you not want to learn more about its background? And Embark does it's a fascinating tool that hasn't been available for very long in our society. And it's a very thoughtful Christmas gift. And, with the holidays around the corner, don't forget about Embark.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about Deshaun Jackson. We're just talking about Hunter Renfrow, who's a Las Vegas receiver. Deshaun Jackson now going in, presumably to fill that Henry Ruggs role. How do you feel about Deshaun Jackson from a fantasy perspective with the Raiders?
I don't think he's going to be a guy you can rely on week to week at all, but he'll have like 2 games where he catches 3 or 4 balls for 120 yards at some point this year. And the other thing with Deshaun Jackson, he's 30. We remember,
he can go. He did it against the Bucs.
But he's not young. He's kind of like he's mid-30s now. He's on another team. He's been on a lot of teams. I don't think fantasy-wise. Plus, I hate to sound like this, but a lot of weird stuff going on in Vegas. Deshaun in Vegas. A lot of things could happen here too on that front. So
I saw like a video of like Damon Arnett with like automatic weapons, like threatening someone, and then obviously the Henry Ruggs thing. It's definitely some weird stuff. The Raiders took taking a bad L to the Giants going out east for an early kick. It was right after daylight savings times. That actually cracked me up over the weekend, as you were just complaining about how brutal it was to wake up at 10 a.m. for games, but you're 10 a.m. West Coast time, so Pacific time. But we had that night was literally daylight savings time, so you literally got an extra hour, and you're just like, oh man, it's so brutal being in this time zone.
Yeah, that was not the best look. And the funny part, Shay, is I didn't even realize I'd gotten the extra hours of sleep. When you're in Vegas, you're just like oblivious to everything. But hey, today we taped this one early morning, and I had a 1 a.m. podcast last night, but whatever we could do. One thing I want to ask you about this pod. So elite quarterbacks, you look at Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Matt Stafford. Is Mahomes the only one you're worried about that struggled yesterday?
Part of me wants to worry a little bit about Dak, but I think there's such a high-powered offense. Mahomes right now is at QB6. Josh Allen is at QB5. Matthew Stafford is QB3 right now. So Joe Burrow, I guess, you could throw into that ring. I actually think Joe Burrow is going to be fine. He had a pretty bad game.
He did. Well, Joe Burrow's whole game swung on that Denzel Ward pick 6 too, when he was trying to force it to Chase in the end zone.
Yeah, he does force it to Chase. The Bayou Bengals thing, that is very, very real. Carson Wentz actually kind of a surprising. He's QB10, much more consistent than people give him credit for from a fantasy perspective.
No, and when I looked ahead to next week, and you look ahead to some matchups, Carson Wentz and the Colts got Jacksonville. They got Jacksonville at home. Got to love Wentz, Taylor, and Pittman. Taylor especially against that Jaguars defense. That was, when you looked ahead to some matchups for next week, the Colts was one of the ones I was looking at. Also curious, going ahead, I know it's early on the injury report. Will Antonio Brown or Gronk be back after the Bucs bye? Because the Bucs have a good matchup at the football team. Yep. A lot of good fan goodness in that one.
Yeah, Antonio Brown I'd kind of be surprised on. It is very early, but I heard last week, which was their bye week, he was spotted in a walking boot. Not a good thing for returning this week. So I would anticipate him to be out. Gronk had a different injury. It was back spasms. He did have, I believe it was 4 cracked ribs and a punctured lung a couple weeks ago in the loss to the Rams. I guess that has since healed, but he had some back spasms flare up early in the Saints game, so he missed the rest of that game. Then with the bye week, you hope that that's going to be better. But yeah, let's get into next week's matchup. It's brought to you by Roman. Most guys have tried different ways to last longer, but thinking about baseball doesn't always work. The folks at Roman, an online men's health company, are changing the game with Roman Swipes, the secret to longer lasting sex. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance in your head or counting backwards from 10 or thinking about Nate busting out on a 4 high doesn't always work. Roman Swipes are a clinically proven way to last longer in bed. They're effective, easy to use, fast acting, and do not require a prescription. Roman can ship swipes to you in a discreet, unmarked package, and each Swipes packet is small enough to hide in your wallet for whenever you need it. They're super easy to use. Just take Swipes out of the packet, swipe it on, let it dry, and you're good to go. That is it. Go to getroman.com/fantasy to get your first month of swipes for just $5 when you choose a monthly plan. That's getroman.com/fantasy. Again, get your first month of swipes for just $5 when you choose a monthly plan. Thank you, Roman, for the partnership on that. Who do you foresee using Roman Swipe and going all day next week in their matchups? So honestly, the one bet that I've actually kind of made every week, and he is my fantasy quarterback on my big league team, and it's Lamar Jackson. I love betting what I call the Lamar lay. It's a Lamar Jackson-based parlay where I'll go over his passing yards, over his rushing yards, because they just can't. I don't think Vegas can figure him out. Those hit quite. I mean, his rushing yardage almost always is in the low 60s. I mean, he is destroying that, especially with, the injuries to J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. Like, they don't really know what they're doing in their backfield, so he's keeping the ball a lot. His passing yards is typically around, the 240s. It was at 248.5 yesterday. It did take overtime to get there because they played off in the first half, but he is a prime time player. It is kind of tough to figure out his passing touchdowns because he's been pretty sporadic in that. So I generally go with the over Ravens points just to be safe. But he's going home to Miami on Thursday night, the home of also Hollywood, the growing up place of Hollywood Brown as well. That was kind of their coming out party. It was 2019, week 1, where he had, it was 5 touchdowns. And Hollywood Brown kind of burst onto the scene with that. So I'm looking for them to have a huge game. I'm very, very excited for the FFF parlay on Thursday. It's definitely going to be heavy Lamar Jackson, maybe a little bit of Hollywood Brown. But I love that matchup for next week. What are some other matchups that you really like?
So the one I'm looking at that's going to be watching close is the Atlanta-Dallas game, because of what just happened with Dallas. I mean, you look at Dak, he had that calf injury. He hadn't practiced much in 3-4 weeks, just looked extremely rusty. I mean, they were losing 30-0 in that game before they got 2 late touchdowns to lose 30-16. You would think, and I'm going to think on the surface, let's give Dak and the Cowboys a benefit of the doubt. They had one really bad Sunday after they've covered every game this year. This should be a bounce-back effort in theory at home against Atlanta. 52.5, high over-under. So I'm looking at Dak and Zeke and CeeDee Lamb and all the Cowboys offense as bounce back prime candidates next week against Atlanta in a game that could get a little higher scoring on the fast track.
Gotcha. I mean, that's going to be an interesting matchup. Dallas looked so bad for 55 minutes and then looked, from a fantasy perspective, great for the last 5, but it was obviously just kind of a very soft defense. Atlanta, can they keep it up? Calvin Ridley is going to be out for, it looks like, I think they put him on like the NFI list. So I think he's out for like at least 2 more weeks, 2 more games. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. You touched on it earlier, Bucks going to Washington. Washington is a very tough, I shouldn't say tough. They should be a very tough defense, but they've been very poor this year. I really like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Both have very good games with Antonio Brown's expected absence. Some other guys I like to mention, Jamal Agnew, Pookie Williams, who you mentioned yesterday, big 100-yard game against Dallas. I expect him to have a pretty good game next week hosting Philadelphia. And then, some kind of the usual suspects, Darren Waller, bounce back we mentioned. Brandon Ayuk, I think, can continue his upward trajectory. Arizona defense I really like next week hosting Carolina, who's just so mistake prone. And then one guy I want to talk to you about specifically, AJ Dillon. So he had the same number of touches yesterday as Aaron Jones. The week before, he had 16 carries. Mm-hmm. Is this a guy who's becoming like an every week start?
I think he is. Because you look at that offense, the value in it, AJ Dillon is getting featured more and more. And that's another game to look at next week is Seattle at Green Bay. It's like funny because Jordan Love went first round, but I feel like Aaron Rodgers had to have a lot of thoughts on that performance yesterday. Yeah. I would think in KC by Jordan Love. And you got to feel like Rodgers is going to come off this COVID list and could be a big bounce back performance for Green Bay off that loss at home against the Seattle defense. It's not, it's playing a little better, but certainly not great. So that's one I'm looking at. And I agree. I think A.J. Dillon, you could start as number 2 running back right now. I do. He catches some passes too.
Yeah, he caught 4 yesterday. Aaron Jones right now is RB7 for the season, but I feel like his arrow might be pointed down.
Yeah, I think Aaron Jones' arrow is pointed down, and so much of his value is touchdown based. But man, A.J. Dillon, they're getting him the ball half the time. He's in a prolific offense. And so, as the weather gets colder too, he's a big back, Boston College guy. I think A.J. Dillon could be a solid number 2 running back the rest of the way.
They got to start utilizing him a little bit more around the goal line, but they obviously got to get there first, and that's could be a problem with Jordan Love. We'll see if Aaron Rodgers is back for next week.
One other game that I think it's a hard one to predict, but Vikings-Chargers, I mean, you can see that game. That could get wild.
Yeah.
But then it also could be like inexplicably a dud too, with how wild these teams are.
Right, both are so like up and down. It'll be very interesting. The Chargers right now 2.5 point favorites. The over under is 51.5 at present moment. The biggest over under next week, actually Sunday Night Football, 52.5 between the Chiefs and the Raiders in Las Vegas. We'll see if Deshaun Jackson actually makes his debut, but that should be a pretty fun game for Sunday night. Hopefully, put together a nice parlay for the people.
Yeah. And I want to mention on the pickup thing, and he's already owned a lot of leagues, but I think, Josh Jacobs is still nicked up the knee. I know he's playing, but Kenyon Drake, 6 catches for 70 yards yesterday. I think he's going to continue to just be like a solid fill-in guy. You get buys in that matchup. In KC, I just don't know. I just don't know what to think. I mean, Patrick Mahomes throwing for 160 yards. He was like 19 of 36 for 165, 170. When the hell has Patrick Mahomes ever averaged 4.5 yards an attempt?
Yeah, my guy Dov Kleiman tweeted out like a still image of that the photo, Jordan Love and Patrick Mahomes, like stat comparison. It was like which one of these guys is making their first start, because their stats are basically identical. Tough game for Mahomes. He did make the big play late in the game to kind of seal up the pass to Tyreek Hill, which I'm thankful he did. Lost the Packers, which helps the Bucks, but it's tough sledding right now for Mahomes. I think he needs a confidence boost for sure. Maybe that play at the end of the game provided it.
Do you think, on the Mahomes theory, do you think it's like his brother and his wife and all this family stuff that's distracting him?
I think that can play a part in it, honestly. It's just it takes up his like brain space, and like he can get embarrassed or angry or whatever about that, and that's less time he has to focus on what he needs to focus on.
I know he's a new dad. I'll tell you what, I'm going to call out McCole Hardman by name. I mean, when you look at like losing Sammy Watkins, granted he didn't play every week, but he would help them. Hardman has that game-breaking speed, but he just drops balls. He's just wildly inconsistent. He's never been that guy, Yeah, and if you're getting ready for the Chiefs, it's literally you're just getting ready for Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, because Darrell Williams isn't really a game-breaker running back. I mean, I know he had 70 yards, but he's not. He's just a guy. And
Clyde Edwards-Helaire kind of getting off scot-free because he's injured, but he has been wildly disappointing based on his draft status.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just weird, it's just jarring because it's not something, all the things I would have predicted this year, I would have never thought Patrick Mahomes looking like a mediocre quarterback was one of them.
Yeah. All right. So that's 9 weeks in the book. We got week 10 coming up. Big week for you, obviously, at the World Series of Poker. So best of luck there. We want to thank everybody for rocking with us another week on the Fantasy Football Factory podcast. We'll have content throughout the week. And then obviously Sunday morning, 11:30 Eastern, Dear Mr. Fantasy will help you with your last minute lineup decisions. Hopefully help you get in the winner's circle. We want to thank you guys. Fantasy Football Factory presented by Miller Lite for Las Vegas Las Vegas temporary resident Benjamin Mintz, myself, Steven Cheah. Thank you guys for listening. See you next week.